Testing audio, testing audio, testing audio.
Right. Problem.
Let's see here. There we go. Perfect. Well, apologies to all our wonderful people who actually did not hear me crystal clear on the stream. Welcome in. Yes, yes, yes. We are already in progress. So, third Wednesday of the month, Twin Cities Playtest. If you have any sort of demo in any state of completion, if somebody can pick up a controller or touch a computer and something happens, that's good enough to show at Twin Cities Playtest next Wednesday. Reach out to Mark LaCroix as soon as possible to ask about how you can showcase your game there. You can participate. Right? If you just want to play, then just show up. You don't have to say anything, do anything. You just show up, and someone will force you to play some fun, cool, locally made games. And that's a guarantee. And then our fourth Wednesday of the month is Minnesota VR HCI Special Interest Group, focused on VR, AR, and HCI presentations, demos, discussions, and etc. at REM5 Studios. Then we've got our special of interest events, such as our Women in Games Gathering every third Saturday, 6:30 to 8:30 at Noble Robot. If you in any way identify with the label of woman, you are more than welcome at this event. And then we've got our game.wav throwback. Thank you, thank you. Game.wav, second Thursday, so usually the day after the Gamedev meetup. Yes, Scott? Absolutely. Let me switch over to the fun room audio.
Go for it. Take it away.
So it'll be about basic math intro for how audio on computers works. So how does digital audio work? How do people perceive digital audio, and how can you use math to make the two work a little bit better? If you know how to add and multiply, this talk is for you. It helps, yes. It's just the concept of how it works.
Okay. How we're gonna have everything starts
Perfect.
And this is tomorrow.
Tomorrow at Hennepin Technical College Audio Production Department. Room 183? Room 183, right?
Wow.
Room 183 for Hennepin Technical College?
Yes, it's like so first there's only one room
Yeah.
and it's to the
Only one room to the that way. There's a diagram on Discord that you can check out in the events info channel for more details. Yeah, if you run into any problems with any of our event info, you're trying to find it, reach out to someone on Discord or poke around in there. And if you're interested in adding another event for me to talk about every month, please let us know. Reach out to one of our board members or say something in the Discord. Speaking of letting us know about things, if you are a local game developer, IGDATC community member, or you're just based in Minnesota or you know someone who is, and you are or know someone who is a developer on a game that released this year, you should tell us about it. At our holiday party this year, we want to put together a little short showcase of locally released games that are made by people or worked on by people in the community. So we got a QR code there. There's a link down there. I will also post it in the Discord once I'm done yapping at y'all. But let us know about the cool things that you've made so that we can share it with more people. Quick shout out, thank you to our sponsors. These 4 wonderful locations are all places that provide space and other amenities for our events. Noble Robot, 2DHQ, Hennepin Technical College, and REM5. Give them your business, support them. They all do cool things, and they are very cool places. Shout out. You can also support Nice Games Alliance, the nonprofit that we founded to support our ongoing events. If you have gotten any value out of this community, regardless of your length of participation, this is a way for you to directly financially support the community towards that mission, which you can find on nicegames.org. All that money is tax deductible and can only be used to directly support the organization. We'll be doing things like purchasing the venue for this upcoming holiday party, or a brand spanking new camera so that we can see everybody in the audience in crystal clear video and audio quality. Cool things like that. Upgrades, people, upgrades. So, now we're getting into the community plugs. This year, the UMN is doing their IP Law Clinic again. So if you're interested in free legal assistance on any intellectual property matters, any of the stuff up here, they are having appointments available January to April 2026. You can follow that link right there or reach out to lawclinic@umn.edu. Call them at their phone number there. For more info, I believe there's a form you have to fill out to apply for it, and it's on a
shifting scale based, or like priority is based on what will be most useful to the students who are providing the resources, but super duper useful for people in this community. Question. I assume they want to hear from people as soon as possible, from what I recall from the email that we received. Yeah, super exciting, right? Wahoo! We've also got Jam a Jam, locally hosted by me, 48-hour remote asset jam by me, among other folks, such as John Gilliland and Branson Mariola, shout out, and Katie Monty, shout out. It's the first Friday of every month. It lasts 48 hours. Create one asset based on the theme of the month. This month was folklore. These are some of the wonderful assets submitted. And we also do an off-season theme each month. If you're interested, the theme is thingamajigs. Make a thingamajig. And join our Discord if you'd like to learn more. There's also another really cool locally made thing called Nice Games Club. It's a Gamedev podcast. Look at all these wonderful, exciting recent episodes that you should check out and listen to right now, especially if you're interested in fishing minigames. Especially if you're interested in fishing minigames. You can listen to them at nicegames.club or wherever you find podcasts. And if anybody else wants to steal the microphone away from me or just shout out from the audience, any of these things or beyond, let me know. I see a hand up over there. I can switch to the audio for the room mic if you like. Let's do it.
All right. So, if you ever wanted to go to GDC but you couldn't stop, then consider going to MDev, which is next month, November 7th through 8th, if I'm remembering the calendar.
That sounds correct.
So, it's basically GDC, but it's in Madison, Wisconsin, and it is a fraction of the price that it would cost to go to San Francisco and GDC, and it is a fantastic time. You get to hear from game developers, primarily based out of the Midwest, and you get to network with those same people, and you will also get to see various local and Midwestern area games, including Hot Game, Dice Town.
Oh, you don't say.
Show up if you can, if you want to.
Yes. That's co-signed. Very fun event, lots of good networking, and just good exposure to a large community presence.
Who's planning on going? Anybody like
Showing him.
Oh, sweet.
Exciting. We're gonna take over, guys.
Should have a convention.
Gosh,
That Best Games Alliance is for.
that's all about.
It's burn that one go. She got my stuff. So just don't. But if I did, I'm saying we got $3 tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I may have missed that. Yes, Game.Wave is tomorrow, second Thursday of the month. It usually ends up being the day after the Game Dev meetup. Check it out in person, on stream, preferably in person.
Yeah. And last meeting was really awesome. So the most people we've had at that meeting, I can't remember how many people. It was more than 3.
It's even more right. Got that.
Yeah. Really awesome. It was a great time, and I'm really excited for the first member presentation. So I don't have to do the presentation with the dog.
Amazing.
Did you? I'm gonna still be there. I'm gonna still talk. All right, I can't get it.
Does anybody else have anything you'd like to plug? Andy?
Hi everyone, I'm Andy Korf. We have some availability in our schedule, so if you're looking for professional game dev services, come talk to me or Scott. We specialize in physics simulation for games, shader development, graphics engine stuff, Unity, VR. We have a huge list of stuff on our new website, which was laboriously created by me over several weeks.
What's that website link?
HowlingMoonSoftware.com.
Amazing. Oh yeah. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. And in that case, we're going to jump into our pre-presentation on that scary Unity
I
thing.
guess that's what we're calling it now.
Yeah. Let's switch back into Unity.
Okay, so happened here? Reboot, I guess. All right. So how many people have heard about this, that Unity put out a security update? You probably got an email about it, actually, right? Okay, so many of you probably know it, or you've put it off, or it doesn't apply to you, but I want to get this down on the record for the stream and for folks here to go through, to talk about the whole process, what it is, why it's important, why Unity is making a big deal, but it doesn't seem like a big deal, and sort of put it in context, as well as the different strategies for dealing with it if you have games out in the wild and want to know, like, is it really that important that I update my 6-year-old game or whatever? So I'm calling it Unity Security Update, What Do? Here's our contents. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about what it is, give us some context. I'm gonna lay out what your options are if you have a game out in the wild, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about communicating this to your users, as well as keeping track of it in terms of like your version history, which I have some recommendations on. Okay, so first thing is there is a security vulnerability that exists in all applications built during Unity. So this is like a really big deal in a technical sense. Anything that's been made in Unity in the past like 7-8 years is affected by this. For Android, Linux, macOS, and Windows, console targets, iOS, WebGL, and UWP, which no one uses, all seem to be unaffected. And I don't exactly know why. I've dug into the technical details on this, but I decided not to venture a lot of guesses about this because I might be wrong about that. But wide-ranging, every single version of Unity for all these different platforms affects thousands and thousands of games. It was discovered this spring as part of a bug bounty program that Meta put on. It was reported to sort of a normal process for finding vulnerabilities. It was reported to Unity. It was not publicly disclosed by anybody until last Thursday, where the researcher put out a blog post of their own through the company they work for. Unity put out their information as well as their remedies and patching tools. So a fairly orderly process, and as far as security updates go, not that unusual, but in the game sphere, sort of unprecedented, I would say. The exploit, just in the briefest technical explanation, it takes advantage of the debugging capabilities of the Unity player. And the general use case is for launching a program with command line arguments, which is pretty common in Android and on desktop applications. And you can do that for any Unity game, but it's also an uncommon use case generally, so it might seem unfamiliar to most folks on how they launch their games. But through that, you can replace third-party libraries within a game and then execute those. So you can get arbitrary code execution. But the main thing is that it adopts the permissions elevation level of the host application. So for most of us, that is, it can only do what your program can do. So that includes deleting files and all the things you have, but it doesn't necessarily, unless your application has elevated permissions and the user grants that, it doesn't, it's constrained to what damage your program can do, your game can do. It's not that your game becomes a weapon that could destroy a computer, although if your game could, so could the exploit. This normally requires local access to execute, but you are allowed, because Unity is just a general purpose application framework, you can register URI handlers to launch your application. So there are ways to exploit it remotely. But the researcher didn't actually investigate or any particular games. They couldn't find anything, or rather they didn't look for anything to execute. They just like, this is possible. I don't really need to do it. So we really don't know what the, there aren't a lot of examples in the wild, and there are no reported exploits of the vulnerability. For the vast majority of games, all of this seems to really make it a practical non-issue, and you can really, once you read through the details, the more you read about it, the more you realize how this is basically nothing. But because Unity is a general purpose application framework, it is technically a very serious vulnerability, and it's right for everyone to take it very seriously. So it's kind of hard sometimes to keep those two things in mind. And Unity's messaging on the subject kind of also has that sense of like, this is really, really serious, don't worry about it. Which is true. That is what it is, right? And it's sort of, it's easy to look at that and think like, well, this is like something's off here, but that's really what it is. So yeah, Unity says there's no evidence. They repeat this repeatedly through their documentation. There's no evidence of any exploitation, nor has there been any impact on customers. But also Unity, all developers must take action. So these two things are both true. The recommendations for this are guided by the CVE, which is an industry standard for cataloging software vulnerabilities. And so we're just giving ourselves over to that standard, everyone, and they rated it as quote unquote high. So that is why the recommendations are sort of as urgent and extreme as they are, is because they fit into this categorization system, which everyone takes seriously for a good reason, and it's standardized, which is important. Unity is not making any distinctions between like scripting backends or compiler settings. They're not really categorizing certain games or certain things you do when you build your game as more susceptible or not. They're just broadly saying all games are affected. I did look a little bit into like, is the Mono framework particularly is an easy target, and not all games are compiled with the Mono framework, but it doesn't really matter necessarily. I didn't really get too deep into it. I think it's just, let's just take it as seriously as they tell us to take it seriously. So on Thursday, this is what Unity put out. They sent the email to everybody with all this information. A security advisory that just sort of details the basic what it is. A forum thread called "Take Immediate Action to Protect Your Games and Apps," which again is like very urgent, and then you read lines in there, they're like, "Don't worry about it." So it is sort of, you really have to wrap your mind around it. A development remediation guide. This is the most important article that they have. And like all Unity documentation, it's kind of like, where's the main thing to click? That's the thing you would want to look at, is the developer remediation guide. And they updated all versions of the Unity editor. So I made a little chart here for all the different major and minor versions of Unity. They didn't just say update to the latest version. Every single minor version of Unity, going all the way back to 2019, got a patch update, or even the F2. All Unity versions were like F1 once they changed that naming scheme a long time ago. They finally got out F2, which is incredible for a lot of these, but not all of them, weirdly. I don't know exactly why. But what this is important later for if you have a game and you don't want to update to the current version. Every single version along the way got a new version to address this vulnerability specifically, with the exception of versions of 2017 and 2018, and I'll get into why that in a bit. They also released a patching tool, so you don't actually need to rebuild your application, especially if your tool chain is sitting in, hard to set up again. You can patch existing applications. They released the utility for Windows and Mac, and from that application you could patch Android, Mac, and Windows games. So what would actually need to be updated in your game? This is sort of nice to know, but not terribly relevant necessarily. No game code or assets. None of your stuff will need to change. Unity builds break apart a lot of its components rather than compiling it all together, even in Mac or Android, where it seems like it's one file. And so what you're looking for is the Unity player library. Is that piece that is basically the same in every game. I used to be a Flash developer where you would just download Flash on your computer, and then all the games ran on one copy of Flash. What this is called is a package runtime or a captive runtime, where there's a copy of the runtime shipped with every game. That's what needs to change. And so these are what the files are on each version for your, in case you really want to take a look. Not terribly that interesting. Okay, so all games are since 2017.1, which is practically every Unity game in recent memory, is technically impacted. Your options are governed mainly by how you're distributing your game, and also your quote unquote level of concern. So there is a do nothing option, and I'll detail that in a bit. Again, the risk to users, I can detail a little bit. Microsoft Defender already blocks the exploit, so an attempt will already be stopped on Windows. Other antivirus providers are also looking to do the same. But just speaking personally, you don't need anything other than Microsoft Defender on a Windows machine. Google Play Services and Meta's Quest platform also currently have remedies in place. ASOP versions of Android, so open source versions of Android, which very few people have, those don't do anything for it just yet, so that's going to definitely rely on the developer. Valve has told Unity it plans to update the Steam application on all platforms to address it, but it's Valve, so they just were quiet about exactly what they're going to do, so you just have to trust us, I guess. I'm getting Steam. If you launch a game in Steam, you'll sometimes get little options for how to run it. That is actually just runs command line arguments on the launcher, so that's possibly related to that. I don't exactly know. I would trust the operating system to handle it more than the Steam launcher, but there you go. It might be another extra bit of protection. Again, ultimately, the risk to users is very, very low, but the technical severity it may impact the store listing. So it may one day, after a while, become something where Steam says, hey, you haven't updated your game, we're going to delist it, we're going to we're going to move it down in some analytics rankings. We really don't know what that's going to look like yet. So for that reason, if for no other, we should be taking this seriously as developers. There are an extremely limited number of breaking changes. So if you patch your game, but these breaking changes are so incredibly limited, and they're generally confined to the things that an exploiter would use to exploit the vulnerability. So it's very, very unlikely that it applies to you, but it might limit your options to update if you rely on some of those capabilities. That's outside the scope of this presentation, but you can find that in their documentation. So what are your options? Your options for games in development, really easy. You just update your version of Unity, no trouble. This is a great excuse to update to a new minor or even major version if you've been putting it off. I'm a big fan of arbitrary reasons to update a software package because it's really easy to put it off, and the longer you do, the more headache you'll have later on. It's nice to stay on the train. It's also annoying to stay at the head of the train, so like find your spot, and this is a good time to leapfrog if you've been putting it off. If you've already locked your major and minor version, like if you're close to release, or you're just really happy and you don't want to rock the boat, that's fine, because like as I said, Unity has issued updates to every minor version going back to 2019.1, so there's almost no chance you're using something currently developed on a version older than that. If you are, I want to hear your story, but you're good to go. And these editor updates, they only mitigate the security vulnerability. So unless you're going from like a really, really old point version, 20 versions ahead within the minor version, you are just not going to have to worry about breaking changes because, like I said, it's that update that they made to each of those only does this, and that's going to be good advice for your application. I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So if you're already all up to date, which again, if you're at the head of that train, which congrats on your dedication to the rapid release thing, which Unity puts out versions way too quick, I think. But if you're already up there, then you have no worry at all. Just update. You're fine. For released games, you have 3 options. First is to do nothing. This is a legitimate option. Like, Unity won't tell you this because it would be irresponsible to tell you this. I'm not going to tell you that this is the best option because it'd be irresponsible for me to tell you this, but it is a legitimate option. It's up to you. No one recommends it. And the reason is technical, but also because the consequences are pretty much unknown, both in a technical sense. I have like I said, didn't get too deep into the technical exploitation. I know enough to not worry too much about it in the real world, but who's to say? So other than technical things, the distribution platforms have not issued guidance on this. So we don't know what steps Google is going to take in 4 months when, which is maybe they think that's enough time for everyone to update. Then they're going to start delisting things perhaps. We don't know. Unity's FAQ on this is like consult your local friendly neighborhood application store to find out what they think. As far as I know, no one has said anything about this except for Unity. Microsoft has issued some guidance on their own applications, and they have said uninstall our applications until we do new ones, which I feel that's a left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing kind of situation. But basically, we're less than a week in to this, so I don't think there's, and because it's so wide-reaching, people are not really sure what the right industry-wide guidance is for some of these things. We just don't know. So best just to take care of it. And yeah, basically, if you have thousands and thousands of games, some of them are pretty old but remain popular. Like, is Steam in the business of like taking that down? Like, I think they're motivated by economic interests to not want to rock the boat in that sense. So maybe nothing will happen. But from Unity's FAQ, they say, do I need to take my application off the store? They say no. They say because we provided all these things and don't worry about it. This is kind of in their like FAQ next to the what if I do nothing. So it's kind of them talking out both sides of their mouth. Like, they know that if you do nothing, it's probably going to be fine. But they also know they can't tell you to do nothing. And they are also say, in the meantime, before you do something, it's fine. Like, if it takes you a week, if it takes you a couple weeks, you don't have to take, there's no urgent, immediate need to take things off of a store. But they're also not telling you in here to not update it later. But they're kind of saying, if you don't, maybe. Anyway, that's my point of it. Okay, so option 2, create a new build. This is Unity's first recommendation. They say everyone should do this. Now, this isn't going to be practical for everybody, but it is the best option. For recent and currently supported projects, this absolutely is the best path for a number of reasons. It uses your existing workflows. For one, you're not implementing the patching tool. It's just an unscheduled application update from your concern. It's annoying, but it's simple. You know how to do it. It maintains proper project versioning. This is the thing that I think it hasn't been talked about enough because it's just like do it. but I think it's important for us, especially as independent developers, we got to keep track of our stuff, and like, this is not easy. So just doing a new build, just use your normal workflow, whatever naming scheme you use. Hopefully it's good. You can just keep on with that. Easy as could be. For out of support projects or like a game that's maybe a couple years old, but like you don't have your development environment set up quite right. You don't have the Unity version going. You don't have the Android SDK that you need to go. It's a less attractive option. Might be still worth doing it if you can do it quickly. And Unity versions before 2019.1 have not been updated. And Unity's reasoning for this is that there's so few of those out in the wild. But if that's one of yours, they have to be patched. They can't be, they can't use a new version of the editor because there is no new version of the editor. Okay, option 3 is to patch your existing build. This is the best option for the quickest resolution as possible. You could do it very, very quickly. Unity has made it very, very simple, especially good for older projects. A couple of considerations. On Android, Google has allowed a temporary exception to submission rules. So if you publish on Android, you'll know that if you kind of wait a while, suddenly you're like, oh, I have to update the SDK because I waited too long in development, because they had that rolling minimum update. It rolls pretty quick compared to other platforms. They're allowing a temporary exception to this. So if you have a game that's been released and is working fine with the version of Android and is still available on the store, but if you were to try to do a new version, they would force you to upgrade. They're going to not do that this time. I don't know exactly how, I just know that they're going to, so it might require a support ticket. I didn't personally look into this because I don't have a going Android Unity game. So consult the Google Docs if they exist yet. I don't know. Linux considerations. The patching tool is not available on Linux, and the tool on Mac and Windows doesn't patch Linux games. So the reasoning that Unity gives for this is that it's just, they're less worried about it on Linux. Like the exploitation still exists, but the actual potential is worse. I think part of it is too is that the market is a lot smaller. But this means that Linux games made with versions 2017.1 through 2018.4 cannot be updated at all. You have to update to a new version of the engine. You can't stay on that version of the engine. And you can't patch it, you have to make a new build. Yeah, they said a much lower risk on Unix, which I believe that's true. So I didn't update the Linux version of Widget Satchel this week when I did my updates for that reason, because I chose the patch route for that, but I have a Linux version of Widget Satchel. I don't know why, but I did it. I was young and eager. All right. So how do we do each of these options, these 2 and 3? So create a new builds, really easy. You know how to do this. I have some recommendations I'm just going to run through. The only update you make if you're going to make a new build is make an update to the editor version and do nothing else. I think it's really tempting to kind of roll in some other stuff, but if you can avoid it, make no other changes to your game. If you have a bug fix you've been putting off or you're currently working on something, save that for a separate update. And there's a couple of reasons why. If you're currently in the middle of updating your game and, fingers crossed, you're using version control, commit / or fork your changes and go back to the commit that matches up to your latest release version. Now, you are tagging commits with release version numbers, right, everybody? Yes, you're doing that? Because that would make it easy. If you're not, then you get a little bit of trouble and you're going to have to ignore some of this. Once you've done that, update the Unity editor to the latest version that is within your minor version. I would not recommend using this as an opportunity to update to if you're in development, go nuts. But if you're just doing this one change for a new build, I would say stick on the major and minor version of Unity and just get the new patch update of the editor so that your changes are as minimal as possible. Create a new commit with that, and really it's just going to be which version of it and probably some metadata. Tag it as a version update in your Git tree. Create a build, reapply your previous changes so you can continue with your life. If all this creates a headache for you, if you didn't label things right or your version control is kind of a mess, that's fine. It's going to make some delays because if you're working on something, then it's going to delay the update until you're done with those things. Like find a good stopping point, try to do it as soon as possible, and let that be a lesson to you, yada yada. Patching existing builds. Unity's patching tool it's very simple. You just download it, you fill in the things, you hit the button, you're great. But there's a first couple things worth considering. For Mac and Windows, hopefully you're keeping track of your builds and keeping track of your archived builds. This does create, you do have an application on your machine that is vulnerable, so maybe you'll want to put it in a zip archive or something, but like if you're worried about someone locally exploiting it to get the elevation permissions of your, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but make a copy of the build, give that a new name, and patch that version. Keep track of these things because it's going to be outside your normal workflow. For Android, the patching tool will generate a new APK, but still keep track of the different versions. Keep your naming schemes intact. Don't just like make a thing and get it out and get it done. Like keep track of your process and adopt it into your existing process. Because you're not creating a brand new build, you'll need to come up with some versioning, and Unity will put the version that you have in a build, and on Android, you'll get the new version number for Android system, but it'll still have the same version as far as Unity is concerned. So you're gonna have to make sure that that makes sense for you, because you're not actually gonna be updating the version number necessarily. Here's the thing on Android. Remember to query the version code I was just talking about. It has a little handy query version button, which is really nice, because this is just an integer that just goes up and up and up, and you're not gonna remember what you're on, especially if it's an older project. And then double check the signing information. That's a whole thing with mobile apps. I haven't done it in a while, so I don't have a ton of information to share, but just make sure that that's all good so you get a nice version of it. Do all your normal testing that you do for a new build. But really, it's pretty simple. You just do the application path, you get the version information. If you're developing your project and for some reason want to patch a build and you haven't released it yet, then you can just use the same version code, I guess. I don't know why you would, but there you go. Easy peasy. On Windows, even easier, you'll find the unityplayer.dll, which is in the root of your game's build folder. What I did for Widget Satchel is it was currently 1.0.3. So just for my own record keeping, I did 1.0.3.1 rather than 1.0.4, because the version number is not only in the data of the build itself, it's displayed to users on the home screen, on the title screen. So I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any confusion there. So just for my own records, I just added a fourth semantic number in there, which is sacrilege to some people, but there you go. On Mac, I'm sure everybody knows this, but Mac application are folders in disguise. So I did all this on Windows, but if you're on Mac, you can just copy and rename the .app. But on Windows, I like to keep them inside of a parent folder, just so that I don't muck around, so that I know that it's not because it is a folder on Windows, but I want to treat it like a file. So I put it in a parent folder, and then that's where I rename what the build is. In the patcher, it's going to say go to the path to the application update, but it's actually looking for the Unity player library, which is actually, you have to dig around to find it, and it's in your games folder /content/framework. So there you go. Saved you 30 seconds. Okay, so considerations for patching going forward. Again, this is great for old games or for things where like you're done updating them forever, or where it's difficult to recreate the environment, but you may wish to actually update the game in the future. You may have that in your mind. You may have thought, hey, in 6 months, I blocked out some time to make an update, but now I just have to patch the thing just to get it, good. So keep track of the life cycle of this patched version, because it's going to be a weird odd one out in the history of your project. And 3 years from now, you're going to get confused if you're trying to keep track of all your stuff. And maybe you're not as much of a digital pack rat as me, but like I hate that kind of filing, quirk. So depending on how annoying that is for you, you'll want to adjust for it. Because again, it falls outside your normal versioning system. When you're back in your project, it's going to be like a hole in the life cycle of the thing. If for some reason you have to use unpatched versions of Unity Editor to create new builds in the future, which I can't imagine why, but there are use cases, just make sure to integrate the patching tool into your build process. This might be true for extremely old games that have very fragile build structure or build chains. I don't know, that might be you. But that's all you need to worry about for that. So last topic here, versioning, publishing, communicating. So this is probably like the thing that matters the most about this, if you discount a lot of the real world technical concerns, which I don't, but I do sort of minimize them. So for versioning, if you're using semantic versioning, I mentioned this already. For new builds, just increase the patch number, easy peasy. Even though it's just that one tiny thing, it's enough for a new version number. Some people might not think so, but there you go. For patch builds, like I said, I just add an additional version number. If your game actually, if you can go in and dig out the version number, you really want to update the third number. If you can manage that, go for it with a patched build. But I have places where the version number surfaces itself relatively frequently within my code base. So I would be unable to do that. If it doesn't appear anywhere for you and you'd like to just do that, go ahead, but then it's on you to keep track of. Again, it mostly impacts your record keeping, because a lot of times this isn't going to be shown like on Steam or whatever, just it will in the back end. I strongly recommend pushing an update that only contains this patch. And these are sort of the reasons why, other than the sort of simplicity and speed of it, is this is a security update. So in games, we're not used to strictly categorizing our updates like this, but it is important in sort of general software development to separate security from content from feature updates. And so this is just good practice, because some people, say, I'm only going to update if there's a security update. I'm not going to update for feature updates. Again, that's a thing you think about for something like Windows or something, but and in games, it really doesn't matter. All updates are as good as others generally, but in this case, we kind of have to cosplay as regular software developers, I think. So communicating to users, this will be my last point. Depending on your project, you may or may not wish to publish release notes. Just put it out there, it's fine, you've done it. But I recommend being sort of upfront and plain about what this is. It's a security update for a library. It's a big deal, don't worry about it. I think that is actually the best message, but there are sort of ways to finesse it in ways that don't give you the liability concerns that, say, Unity has, so you can be a little clearer than they can be, I think. The real world impact is low, but we are well served to respect the CV categorization, even if we are not in that world, while communicating the impact on users. Because player awareness of this issue is currently very low, but as more and more games gets updated in the next couple of weeks, and Unity's messaging remains kind of foggy, gamers are going to start to develop their own ideas about this, and we all know what gamers are like. So it's kind of up to us, actually, to set the tone on what this is and what it means, so that when gamers go searching in a mad dash to figure out what this even is, they find good information and not just cobbled together random information. Players are going to want to know which of their games are fixed and which aren't. They might actually be legitimately worried about this, and we can't tell them not to be. So it's helpful to actually have patch notes that say, this addressed this security update you've heard about. It might be really tempting just to hide it in another update, especially if you got one queued up, just to avoid the topic, should it become toxic among players, which might happen. Maybe I'm being pessimistic, but I could easily see a world in a couple of weeks where this becomes something that gamers talk about, like, well, this is why Unity games are all terrible, which there's a never-ending amount of excuses they have to say that. So this is just one more it could be. Because you might not want to announce publicly that your game is made in Unity, because no one needs to know, and sometimes it's annoying for people to talk about. But I think that would backfire. I think just clarity and honesty is the best method here. If you must do this along with other updates, like you have some updates ready to go and you don't want to do 2 updates in a week, just be sure to highlight that this in your patch notes, that this also addresses that, so that players who are looking for it to just be reassured, know that your game has got it and you're cool. So this is what I did for Blippo. Blippo came out last week. It was a big friggin' deal, and then I had to do this. So as a new build, so this is the message I have for here. It's just putting on my technocrat hat and just said, this minor update updates the library. I say that there's no game code changes. I describe that Microsoft Defender has implemented additional protections. Valve has said Steam will update, or they'll update the Steam client. So current risk to use is minimal. That said, we recommend all users download and install this. I haven't gotten any sort of confused comments about that so far, and we already got 27 thumbs up, so that's nice. Oh, I think that was just like, hey, are you going to give us other content updates? It was like, this is all fine and good, but more Quizzards, please. And then this is Widget Satchel. I patched Widget Satchel. So very similar message, but here I clarify that the update doesn't update any game code, so the version number is 1.0.3.1, and the version shown on the main title screen will remain 1.0.3. Because I don't want, sometimes you don't know if your Steam game has been updated, and Steam doesn't surface version numbers to users very well, so, but Widget Satchel has it up in the corner, so I just want to make it clear that this is still 1.0.3, but it's a patched version. You've got it, don't worry. Question? No. Okay, so here's the thing about it. Semantic versioning doesn't allow you to add a 4th number. It has the dash whatever, but the things that are okay to put in that dash are not updates. They are RC, beta, alpha. This is none of those. This is a real update to the thing. So it deserves its own thing. So yes. Oh, I mean, that's totally fine. This is record keeping, right? As far as no, and that's my point about versioning, is that when you patch the game, the version number will not change, but you are patching a build. So you have to come up with some. If you want to have your own way of whatever you want to call it, because you want to sort of pray at the altar of the semantic versioning.org or whatever they say, like. Right. You know, a lot of people use the fourth one for a build number or for a date. Like there are real world cases where people use the fourth one for a lot of things, or people just don't do semantic versioning. Like that's up to you as well. If you can also do 1.1.1 parentheses patched. Like it's up to you how you want to do it, because it is not, your actual build is not going to have any new number. So that you just have to for your own record keeping. So this is just my way of communicating to players that it is the same build. It's going to look like the same build, but it is a new version, and this is my numbering scheme. Yes, but the patcher tool doesn't do that. That happens before that process. So you'd have to go through that again in Xcode or whatever. So that is outside the purview of the Unity toolchain. Right, and actually, you can see in the Android version, there is a place where you can re-sign the code. Although Google Play signs it on upload now, it's like complicated and simpler. But of course, Mac OS, because they don't play nice with anybody, the Unity patcher is like, we'll just do this part and then you can handle all the nonsense later. Now, Widget Satchel is a game that I didn't do none of that stuff, and the game is out. It's just up to players to, put it on their allow list. And if they can't, that's their problem. All right. Yes, but luckily I don't care. So, yeah. No, I think there's a whole lot to talk about, like the state of Mac gaming development, which is, I mean, that's a can of worms, kind of worth opening. But there you go. All right, so I sort of already opened it up to questions, but let's do that. Let me get the room mic on.
No, I'm waiting for the room mic.
Oh, okay. Andy, wow us, Andy.
The October 3rd Steam client update did contain their fix.
Oh, it did. Okay, great.
And their fix is looking for the explicit arguments that are passed and removing them.
Okay, so it's kind of what I thought it would be.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's like crude, but like that does the job. That's how simple this is.
Yep.
It's kind of how generic this exploit is. It's actually kind of, I mean, Unity gets a lot of crap, but like this does seem like something that just escaped notice for a decade. I mean, it was introduced, it wasn't always, it was introduced in 2017.1, somewhere in the middle, not at the beginning of that cycle, somewhere in the middle there, and then just no one noticed it. But it is actually kind of, if you're a security researcher, you must have looked at it like, that's kind of wild. But again, it's, it's games we're talking about. So,
yeah.
Other questions? Or corrections or information I didn't have?
Will this presentation be available for us to go ahead and go through at a later point?
Yes, so we're recording it, so it'll be on the IGATC YouTube. And then I can put the slides, I can share the slides as well, but it's probably not, I basically just read them off. I did this like an hour ago, so it's probably not that much more interesting. In terms of like the actual linking to it, you can Google for this stuff, you'll find it on these things. But I think I will put that really amazing guide, which is the good document which has all the correct places to go to. I'll put that in the Discord. Somebody remind me. I just wasn't totally on my game tonight putting this together. But yeah, I'll share that link.
So what I gathered is that this is a big deal, but don't worry about it.
That's exactly correct. Yes, thank you. I'm glad I was able to get that across.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to make sure.
And it's like that fact is so annoying. But like that is what it is. It's a big deal. Don't worry about it. But it does mean if you got a game out in the wild, you've got those three options. I both these games, both a new game and an old game. I did them both on Monday. It took me less than an hour. I was really hitting my teeth the whole time, but like don't regret doing it, and it wasn't really a lot of time wasted. So other than like structurally, I hate that this had to happen. And it's going to just impact a lot of people. So put it off, because who knows what a month from now people are going to be saying about it. And also, not for nothing, when you update a Steam game, like people kind of notice. Like Widget Satchel got some thumbs up on that notice, and I don't think anyone bought that game in a while. So like someone made it to that page and saw that notice. So maybe I'll get a little attention out of it. So for no other reason than cynically,
update your games.
How long did it take you to plan on this, or which is that what you say?
Just the tool is just seconds, but making sure that I kept everything, track of everything, organize it so that I felt really good about from start to end. The 4 versions of Widget Satchel for Mac and Windows on Steam and on Itch because they had different libraries in them, and then Blippo Plus for Steam because this is one Windows version that works for Steam and Itch. All of everything took me less than to do, and that included kind of learning how to do it. So, if nothing, my presentation was the slowest way to learn how to do it. Anything else?
Did it take as long as the installation?
I don't know. Was anybody timing me? Oh, for making it? Oh, yeah. Actually, probably took me longer to do the slides. Yeah. So there you go. I think I hopefully it provides some context because the information is kind of scattered around, and that's a Unity documentation thing that is not new. So actually, it's just true of any kind of big organization. The documentation is like, where does the information canonically live in these 7 places? So that's hopefully it cleared up a little bit if any of it was confusing to you.
About half a day after it showed up on the Unity site, the security researcher published a blog post that is a better source of what actually happened.
Yes, what's interesting about the security researcher is like they have actually essentially no background in games, and they like did no testing of any actual real world things. They're just a really good security researcher, and so and they presented it, and that's kind of how it should work, right? The bug bounty program, they found it, they get the bounty, they published the thing with all the details. If you really want to dig into the technical details on how you might exploit it, it's actually kind of interesting. But I kind of was at a certain point like, okay, I get it, I know as much as I need to know about this. So that I can move forward, and how much I need to know to take it seriously or not. So again, you should take it seriously, but again, don't worry about it.
Yeah, a lot of these exploits like can compound with other ones. So
Yeah.
if there's other 0 days, like privilege escalation, where like maybe if they were just using this one, they could only have access to the level of the process, but if they have a 0-day in Windows, they might be able to do more bad things.
Yeah, I think the in terms of like level of severity, like Android is the one that seems at most risk because you do a lot more with the virtual space, and then Windows and Mac, and then Linux seems to be like don't worry, really don't worry about it. But there you go.
Cool.
All right, thanks everybody.
I'm just gonna get the audio on the.
Yeah, I'm still in the room.
Perfect. I think. Cool. Alrighty. So now, without further ado, let's give a hand to Reese.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I am here just as a nerd for production, quite frankly. So when I say scoping for sustainability, I'm looking through more sustainable practices, for your studio from the lens of production and really caring about like your pipeline. So my name is Reese Valentine, they, them pronouns. I'm just some guy here to chat about production. I'm self-taught. I'm just some dorky little indie developer doing their own thing, making a game. Our still released game is a slappy ball, slapping some balls. So, just very silly little things. A quick overview of what we're going to be talking about is I like to call it We Live in a Society is going to be the first thing I'm going to address. And then I'm going to try and get into what I think are some best ways to like really think about how to scope your game in mind with having a sustainable practice, which I think, having a budget and comparisons, trying to follow concentric game development methods, as well as, develop your game in phases and milestones. for any other background, I am a co-owner of Amalur. We are a game worker cooperative, and we've been going for, gosh, three years now. And it's been always a crazy journey, especially being a worker cooperative. I wouldn't change it for the world. But first, I just want to say we live in a society that this is not positive. I'm not saying this in a positive way. Although, civilization to some extent is, it's nice. But labor costs are, in my opinion, going to be the focus of an indie's budget. Honestly, even beyond that, it's how much is your rent? If you're a solo developer, that's your budget of your game. Hopefully, you're paying yourself enough to live. That's going to be your budget. Realistically, a breakout success is far out of reach. I think a lot of us understand that we're not going to be Hollow Knight, which presenter's note to myself mentioned Hollow Knight. The newest source of envy and jealousy. How amazing is it to sit and just be like, oh man, we had too much fun making our game, so that's why it hasn't come out yet. It's like, I wish that were me. Oh my God. Publisher funding has dwindled with more competition. 2025 is not looking any better than how it's been the past couple of years. Especially Amalur has had to really reckon with this as just like a little baby indie studio. I'm not sure if we'll ever get published. And I think it's really necessitating an important pivot to games we can afford to create. I really like this tweet from someone, and I just want to, or I think it was on Blue Sky. I can't tell the UI anymore. But I see good indie devs burn themselves out on huge projects and suddenly come out of hiatus with a little game that is way better and more focused than their prison opus, which, by the way, prison opus, that goes hard, doesn't it? That's kind of cool. Anyway, and every time I want to scream, just do those games. So I think that's also kind of, what comes down to it is you don't want to feel like you're shackled to your masterpiece. Having tighter, smaller experiences, which quite frankly, me as a gamer is kind of craving. It took me, I just started Persona 5 Royal. That game's too big. Why are games big now? I don't like it. I'm a working adult. I can't handle this anymore. But anyway, so my answer to we live in society is production. That's not what I studied for. I'm self-taught. I went to Minneapolis College of Art and Design. I have a BFA in 3D animation. But even then, I I had this interest in gathering people, I guess. You can imagine a college environment where most people didn't care whatsoever about organizing things, task lists, schedules, but that was my bread and butter. I made a spreadsheet of all my classes and what I wanted to take when I was a freshman, right until I was a senior. And people thought I was crazy, but that's okay. I like being crazy. So I was always kind of interested in this organizational aspect. Go ahead, you can open your bag, Scott. I give you full permission. But I've had to do a lot of teaching myself. But there's so many good resources out there. In particular, the textbook that changed my life with this is a playful production process. I love the author of this textbook because he DJs at a gay nightclub, and I think that's super cool. Anyways, so that's how cool the games industry is. You never know if the person who write your production textbook is actually secretly a gay DJ at night, you never know. Particularly, I love the 2002 Mark Cerny talk. He calls it method. And it was really when it was the industry was really trying to push for okay, this pre-production stuff that other creatives are doing in other industries, we got to steal that for games. This waterfall method of just we're trying to treat it like we're making a car, it's going to kill us. We can't treat games that same way. We have to respect it as the art form it is and not just a technological pursuit. So yeah, I'll stop rambling and get into some specifics here. So one of the things that I think is important is making a budget. So even if you, you know, most people make budgets because they're like, okay, I'm going to apply for grant funding. I'm going to apply for a publisher. Like I'm going to send out all these applications to all these publishers, and they tend to, they want to know how much you need to make the game. But I think even if you're not going for that, I think it's really important to understand the commitment you're making. Because sometimes it can be easy to be like, okay, I'm going to spend 4 years on this game. It's like, okay, how much does your grocery bill cost? How much is your rent? Like, consider how much money you need to live for 4 years. If you don't have that in mind, you can't make this decision, I guess, fully informed is what I'll say. If you're ready to do it, then, props on you. But I just think, stepping back and really like working out the numbers. What I recommend is I love this spreadsheet that Remy Ishmael made, budget and comparison. It's very simple, very straightforward. It's not like, some of these budget spreadsheets are like, they get really in the weeds of like each month, like burn rate, business expenses. But like, we're doing this for ourselves, right? We want to know, okay, I'm dedicating 4 years. How much does that cost me? You're just trying to do it for yourself. And I think that, it works perfectly. You just put in, like, if you have multiple team members, you can just put in their name directly rather than a discipline. How much it costs per month. How much, hopefully, pie in the sky, you can get a little bit more than just what you need to live. There's a FTE. I forget what that stands for exactly, but it's just like a ratio of like, how full-time are you? Like, are you actually working on this like 40 hours a week or not? You just, it's a 0 to 1 number. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, which, by the way, if anyone wants to interrupt me at any point and ask any questions, I am happy to have this be more of a back and forth presentation as well. But yes, those are just some like basics on using the spreadsheet. Additionally, what I really like about this is the comparison part of it, which I'll show an example of an old Amalur game that we were trying to seek publishing funding for. But I'll get into that in a moment because I'll talk about finding your comparisons. So when I say budget and comparison, you want to look at games that you feel have the vibe of what you're going to release. Maybe this is useful because they might be having like similar numbers to you. Same number of wish lists, same number of actual sales. So you can expect like, okay, well, in this genre, this game, did this well. Maybe I can hit those same numbers. It gives you evidence beyond just kind of like flailing in the dark. Like, I don't know how gamers are gonna like think about my game. It's like, look at what gamers already think about other games. So the way that I really recommend this, and I kind of have like different scales here. I think it's most useful to have similarity in gameplay. Second, similarity in production level. No, if you see a game that's like one dev with their 8 other pals, it's not the same as you as a true solo developer. So be careful of that lie. Make sure that you're actually comparing similar amount of work hours put into your project, because I think that can get really deceiving. And then lastly, if you're making such a artsy-fartsy weirdo game that you really can't make comparison to other genres, I hope you know your target audience, because then you can really dive into what your target audience is purchasing and what they're interested in and what their favorite games are. But beyond that, search through Steam bundles. Amalur is working on a bottom of the screen game, and there's a lot of it's so cute. Oh my god, guys! I just want to tell you, it's so cute. The bottom of the screen developer people, they like make bundles together, and they're constantly promoting each other, and it's such a like cute little environment. I'm like the Rusty Retirement guy was so excited to create a genre, like he was like promoting other people all the time, and I'm like, I like that energy. But go by Steam tags and searches. Just start looking through Steam. And don't just go by what's at the very tippity top. Because remember what I said earlier, we live in a society. Breakout success is going to be far out of reach. Look at things that are realistic. So look at things that only have 10 reviews and really consider like, okay, what's it mean to me if I'm only going to get 10 reviews in the lifetime of my game? Games by teams in your community. So when I say this, I'm kind of pointing at similar in production level. So here, IGDA TC, look at what people in this room find their games on Steam and look at their review numbers. Maybe if you're close enough and you feel comfortable enough, you can exchange real numbers. I'm not going to put any words in anyone's mouth. Be as secretive as you want. But hopefully I like to encourage open communication about this stuff. But because that's going to get you way more similarity in production level. Because it's so easy to look at something like what I said. One dev with 8 other pals doesn't count. It's actually 9 developers. Don't let them lie to you. They have 9 people actually putting in their work on it, and you can't compare your one solo person to that. So here's me. I like to pretty up my slideshows, don't mind me. But here's an Amalur one for our project Critter Cosmos, which is currently on the back burner because it's too big. It's too big for us right now. But looking at like our comparisons, we're trying to find things that with the spreadsheet, it'll actually poop out some numbers directly for you that you can try and hit based off of what your budget is. So it'll tell you like, okay, try and find something around 154 reviews, try and find something around 274. And it'll let you know like, hey, so this is like, you're like, okay, well, this didn't do great, but like, hey, it did something. It didn't do terrible. You're like middle of the road success of like, okay, like I think it's set to like 10% extra on your budget is the idea there. And then breakout success, like, whoa, this is doing numbers. I had no idea this was going to happen. So I think comparisons are really useful for that. Have evidence and not just kind of like hopes and dreams. So I think that I think having your budget together. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that Mark Cerny had method. Well, I have metal. It will be tested. It's just my silly little thing that I was like, it's not quite method. I'm not really doing agile. I'm just doing what works for my team. So I just was like, okay, this is metal. And really the heart of it is these 3 ideas here. Concentric game development, sometimes TM. I swear to heck, Finji gave a talk on developing a game like a pyramid before. I wasn't able to find it, but if that sounds familiar to anyone. That's kind of what I'm going to be talking about when I say concentric game development. So making it like you have a solid foundation and then you move on to the next piece, essentially. I'll cover it more in a second. For Amalur, we have 4 phases of development: ideation, pre-production, production, and post-production. So we treat each phase, honestly, we treat our work very differently for each project, depending on what phase it's in. And then tied to these phases is milestone reviews and judging deliverables. Off-ramps are important. You want to know by the end of ideation if you're like not feeling the game idea, hop on the next ride, hopefully. Hopefully you don't trap yourself to something prison opus style. But circles and pyramids, concentric game development. I'm going to try and describe this like pretty loosey. But the idea here, and this is entirely up to how many layers is useful for your game. So this is to create documentation to share with fellow developers, or even just to get yourself like organizing the mess that's in your mind. So you need to decide the priority order of your game in chunks, basically. So you have your primary level. These are your core elements. Some examples I give, maybe it's some basics of the 3 Cs. So if you're making a very like I don't know, like a 3D platformer action character game, you want basic character movement, you want a functioning camera, and the controls to actually move your character. Maybe it's the most used interaction in a puzzle game. Look and examine if you're making a point and click. The example in one of my textbooks is movement of tetrominoes. I don't even know if I said that right. In Tetris, they have a funny little name. So if you're making a Tetris clone, probably before you move on to like any other crazy systems, you want the tetrominoes. Yeah, I got it this time. You want it feeling good. And then from there on, it's really how complicated is your game? Ask yourself, how complicated is your game? From there, secondary. It's going to be the next most important player verbs or activities. You start close to, you start to close your game loop, right? Because, you have a character running around. You have, Tetris, you're able to move your blocks. Or in your point and click, you're able to look and examine things. But your game loop's not done yet. So this is, the next layer probably would be trying to finish your game loop. Maybe you're jumping and climbing. Maybe it's really important that you have like your combat system, your turn-based combat. Or maybe, it's a roguelike and you have a selection of random upgrades and you need to start considering how to make the choices in that fun. The important thing here, though, is that you try and like as much as you can. I'm not talking about finish, we're not polishing it yet, but you want this to be functional and ready to go, and then you move on to the next chunk. So this is the idea of like concentric game development, and especially as you start to move outwards to the later chunks, the core idea here is that if some horrible thing happened, like I don't know, you had an accident. And now either you have to decide, am I pushing out the release of my game, months in advance now because I need to recover, I need to take care of my own life? Or, were you developing your game in such a fashion where it's like, okay, well, we're not going to have the fishing side mini game anymore, but, the game is here. And I could try and find a way to still release it in the time frame that I was imagining originally. That's what I think is like the real like power here, is to try and make it so when you're close to release, you're not like, I got really into the combat, but man, the movement feels awful. Like I'm sliding around and like floating and like, I actually never went back and finished that. Trying to give yourself, priority system. And I really like circles and pyramids, concentric game development for that. Any questions on that or any thoughts? Yeah. Okay, so for this live stream, the question was, how do you actually figure out what is primary versus secondary? Now, if you're in a group setting, this might cause some arguments, but honestly, unfortunately, you gotta sit with it. It's gonna be a lot of conversations and considerations there. I think one way to like start pushing yourself in a direction is, and this is mostly useful for primary and secondary, but it does continue out, is really think about that game loop. Try and like I have to be vague here because games can just be so different, and not all games even correlate to a traditional game loop, right? You could be making something that is really different and really weird. And honestly, at that point, I would just say, this is just what you want to finish in chunks. It's better to make a call than to kind of just be like, oh, well, I mean, I guess everything's just primary because it's all important. At some point, you should have to be like, no, you know what? I'm going to arbitrarily decide this is the mechanic I'm going to finish. I'm sorry, I know that was kind of a wish-washy answer. I think this is kind of hard to elaborate on without a specific game genre put out there. But I hope that, like, yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Actually plan and prognosticate what you're doing. So I've been taking steps to figure out through Dice Tower, my game, what actually matters. What, if I took it out, would cause the foundational assumptions of the game to collapse. And then as I started exploring those, I distilled that down. I call these creative promises after different game design framework, but it's essentially similar to game pillars. These are the things that I'm promising the player is going to get out of this experience. And those are the things that become primary. Anything that relates to directly providing that experience is primary. Anything that augments on top of those things, like for my game, it's one of the things is collecting and rolling dice. So you obviously need a way to collect dice. You need a way to roll dice. Those are the core components that you can't remove. But how do you animate those dice rolling? How do you use the dice and what are their effects and the rest of the gameplay? Those are things that are just as important overall, but there are many different ways you could fulfill those. So that's more of a secondary thing over a primary thing. That's kind of what started helping me figure that out from my side of it.
Yeah. I think the layers, like
Big
the
board
more
exercise?
divorced it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I highly recommend Zach's big board exercise. It is a very useful tool.
Who? Who's big?
Zach, somebody or another. He's got a YouTube video that goes over it. He was a lead on Psychonauts 2 for a while. Seriously. Yeah.
It was posted recently within the IGDA Discord. I'll put it later.
Zach and Clemson.
Yep, that's it.
Also a big. What's the other one? Yeah, it has two names: Big Board and
Yard something.
Yard Sale.
Yard sale.
Yeah, so
But yeah, I think more than just like the player experience, because depending on how large your game is, it's like, oh, that might still be putting too much into primary. Think about what is the player going to be interacting with most. That's why it says the most used interaction in a puzzle game. Whatever the player's interfacing with, like immediately upon entering your game, and like what they're going to be continually doing throughout your game. And then you just kind of find yourself more and more divorced from that as you go on. Of like you're not fishing all the time, you're occasionally fishing. So I think tying it into player experience makes a lot of sense. Any other questions or thoughts? All right. So what I'm going to talk about next is basically, I think it's really important to chunk out a game into milestones. Now, you can define these milestones however that makes sense to you. Which, by the way, is it still on room mic? Do I bother using this now?
Yeah, I think let's see how it goes. If we get any feedback from the stream,
I just want to
if
make
the
sure.
sound is good on that, then I think we can just keep it on that mic.
I just want to make sure. So, and one thing that I really want to encourage people, and this is also what Mark Cerny encouraged in his talk, is really care about the stuff before production and give it its space and time. So for Amalur, we have ideation and pre-production, and I kind of define those phases in two different ways. Ideation is really finding the fun. Game development is trying to capture lightning in a bottle. And the more things you have dragging you down, the harder that's going to be. So I'm talking about that this is a time-boxed prototyping phase, which allows for free-form exploration with healthy limitations.
I say healthy limitations here, mostly in reference to make sure that it's actually time boxed, because you never know, a year might go by and you're like, wow, I'm still just dinking around with small little things. But also here is where you can start to, find the identity of your project. The more little crappy prototypes you make, the more heartache, hopefully, you're preventing your future self experiencing. So I really, really recommend having an ideation phase even before pre-production. Like I said, call it whatever you want, define it however you want. But the core of it, it's just, give yourself a month and just start making little tiny prototypes. And when I say prototypes, I'm talking about stuff that you can, make in a day if you're an accomplished programmer. For me, it take a little longer than that. It's more of an artist, but uh, they're not fully fledged games. Don't start worrying about like a score system yet. Think about it as if you are a child and you are creating dolls and now you're playing with those dolls. That's all like you really need is really get started on trying to find your game's identity here. So I said lightning in a bottle. Once you have like more stuff kind of like layered on, more complications, and like as your game gets larger, um, it's harder to like be like, huh, close to release, but my game's not fun. I thought it was gonna be more fun as I like added stuff, but like it's just not happening. It's a terrifying realization and put you under severe amounts of crunch as you're like, well, yeah, gotta change the core gameplay so it's actually interesting. That's why all of this is to save you future heartache. The next thing that I call pre-production is I call design by doing. So by the end of ideation, you've like okay, you found something that I think is shape out. It's really fun. It has like a little bit of an identity here. Uh, I think building out a vertical slice next. It's going to tell you a lot about what this game thing really is about, how hard it'll be to make it. Um, this also kind of like ties into we live in a society a little bit because it's not even just publishers, right? Publishers are wanting to see more and more completeness from the demos that you send in. Um, they don't want to take risks right now. They want to make sure that they're putting money, like well deserved money, into your project, and they're going to get a return. So the more information that you show them, so honestly, vertical slices are kind of like coming up more and more, I think, because of that, especially for people seeking publisher funding. But I also think it's a useful venture in that we have Steam Next Fest now. And Steam Next Fest is proving to be very successful for a lot of people, giving like gamers the chance to experience the idea of your game. And who knows, maybe your vertical slice could turn into your demo to kind of entice people. I think it's something that can tie into your marketing essentially, and that's what kind of like we try to do with Amalur stuff. Is we think of the vertical slice. Not only are we like, okay, well, by doing the vertical slice, we figured out how long it takes to make a character, but we're also, building something that is going to help us market our game. So it's kind of like, well, it serves two purposes there for us. So all this to say, just like don't skip on the stuff before production. Name it whatever you want. Figure out. I'm not here to prescribe anything. I don't want to like tell you, oh, this is the correct way to make a game. It's the only pipeline that you should follow. Um, whatever makes sense for your brain, your team, um, whatever works.
Let's jump back to the slice part of it. So, how would you recommend going about creating that, balancing out the creation of the mechanics and trying them out to feel how fun it is versus making sound systems that you can expand upon? later? Should it almost be that the vertical slice build should not necessarily care about that versus the production build, which then integrates more sound, easily accessible systems? It's a little bit of a mix of engineering and product kind of question.
Yeah, and I think that's where we put a lot of time into ideation, honestly. That's where it comes down to it. Uh, we focus on just making as many of those like tiny prototypes and then developing those further. Maybe starting to combine systems to see how they interact. Um, give yourself as much time and ideation as you need to like find the fun there. So hopefully, I kind of, well, I kind of jump ahead a little bit. Um, that's kind of what the milestone reviews also will help with a little bit. Is that ideation at the end of it, you're going to decide on your direction. You're going to start like pushing forward with a particular prototype that touched your heart and was like, yeah, this is the one. This is my baby, and I'm going to start nurturing it. So by the time that pre-production starts, that's what you're applying of like, okay, we're going to start making it. And this is also why I said concentric development TM sometimes, because this is where you're going to divorce from that. If anything, actually, you haven't really started concentric game development yet. You're still in pre-production. Ideation, you're just throwing darts at the wall to see what even shows up. And then pre-production, you're like, okay, let's start making this thing in like the smallest possible way that we can, so we can see how feasible it is to actually, continue with its full development. So yeah, so I guess that's my lame answer. Is that like you might need to expand time in ideation, right? At the end of ideation, if there's nothing where it's like, oh, things are still kind of feeling a little weird. It's like, well, maybe you need more time. It's better to spend a couple more months in ideation than a year-long game project that it's like, oh, this sucks, and I'm just gonna have to start over anyway.
Do you mind if I take a stab at that question? Because I think you were asking, about like bothering to do it well, like engineering wise, or it's just some very quick slapdash thing. Was that something you were asking about?
That was exactly.
Oh yeah.
Mind if I throw out a quick thought on that?
Yeah, sure.
One way to look that I try to look at that is two tests. One, how confident am I that I'm going to need something like this in this project? Like, yeah, I don't know exactly how it's going to feel, but I'm going to need the infrastructure to do this, then I might suggest do it better. Another question is, if I haven't built anything yet, do I understand the problem well enough to build the right thing? Or am I going to have to replace in 3 months anyway because I don't understand what I'm going to need yet? And if the answer to that is no, I don't understand it yet, then do something really quick and dirty, and you'll learn more about the problem and be able to build it right next time.
Yeah,
that would be my thought on that.
That's what I actually came to, because I asked this as a bit of a. I experienced this question because for Dice Tower, I designed it originally thinking, okay, I figured out what's fun about it. I'll start building the systems and making the real thing, only to then later discover, no, I didn't answer those questions well enough. This is now turning more into a vertical slice instead of a real thing, and that's what I learned in the process is I should have cared less about being foundationally sound that early on before I really knew for sure what my answers were as far as what's fun. So that's a lesson learned moving on.
That's exactly why Amalur has ideation days. Honestly, this is exactly that. Because otherwise, it's like, oh, we have like this basic idea, and we're just gonna start on a vertical slice. Like that's crazy. So like ideation gives you that wiggle room to like explore it before trying to commit to anything.
I should play more ideation.
Yes, I love to hear that. I think it's so important. It's so easy to neglect, right? Because you think the easiest time-saving measure, just make the entire out. Like just finish, or else you're wasting time. It's like that doesn't actually work out all the time.
It's a GDC presentation from 2009 from BioWare. It's the internet level design process.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah. It's super light. And it's great for level design, it's great for top-down design. If you don't know what you're doing, then I think there's another bottom up approach. But for top-down design, the internet level design process is absolutely fantastic. And it's with the animation and pre-production, it's all about asking the right questions at the right time. And that's, do I have the right questions? Am I asking the right questions in the right order?
Yeah, but I watched that too. It was awesome. The problem is I watched it in 2025, not in 2022 when it started.
I don't know what's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so you know. Yeah.
That's so real. Yeah. And I think honestly tied in, I think what's also really useful is giving yourself like milestone reviews. Like actually being like, okay, I'm gonna check in. Like this, I'm declaring it. This is the end of ideation phase. I'm gonna start looking at the results of the ideation phase. I think it's really easy when like you can say you have milestones, but how are you actually like what's the transition period actually like? And I think by having like more concrete review sessions with yourself, if you're a solo developer or with your team, it kind of can prevent like, oop, we're kind of sliding into production by accident here. And we're still ideation. Like, why are we skipping so far ahead here? Because I think like the sticky note says, like you should really make yourself a rubric to decide how you move on. You know, if you're abandoning a project or if you're continuing a project, no matter like what phase of development you're at. And that's going to be unique to your project, to the team, like the team culture overall. But so for pre-production, which I think is going to be one of the like make or break milestones for a project, in my opinion. If you're at the end of pre-production, it should tell you a lot about how you feel about the health of your game project. So we try and have like a variable like amount of documentation for this. So we start developing like a very tiny like game design document. We start working out a schedule. We have our budget by this point. We have our project goals. I've talked about this at a previous talk, but I think it's applicable here. So a company will have values, and you have values as a person, as a creative person. Like, what do you value while you're working? Like games have that as well. Game design pillars, really. So having that, whatever, however you slice it, dice it, define it. Hopefully by the end of production, you'll have started to define these things. I don't think you should start production without defining these things, but you know what? You do you. So when I say looking at all available documentation, it's whatever makes sense for your team. You look at your vertical slice and you vote for the fate of the project. I think it's really important to give yourself an out on a project. I think a lot of people like it's easy to get like, okay, I'm just making the thing and I just have to finish the thing. And like, I'm just gonna, or maybe you're the opposite. You're like, oh, I'm not really feeling this. I'm just gonna move on to the next thing. I think giving yourself a chance to either let the project speak for itself. If you've hit pre-production and the vertical slice is a disaster, you're nowhere near finished, I can tell you, like, I don't think we're cooking here. I think we should really try and go back to ideation, come up with a new idea, or it's you give your project a chance to speak for itself. I think that's what the pre-production milestone review is all about. And then beyond there, depends on how you wanna put it. Traditionally, it's alpha beta. Alpha, you're an interesting definition of alpha that I really liked as a studio that's really interested in narrative focused games is having it sequence complete. I think that is really, really interesting. So it's not just you have all your most important features there working. But what about like the story you're telling? This is where I think that even if it's janky as heck, like blockouts for the rest of the experience and just like basic text. None of us can afford VA work, but you know, if we would have VA work, it's just not even in yet. Um, so at least for Amalur, we're really interested in storytelling. Now that we're past slapping balls, um, we want to tell stories. We don't want to just do a silly multiplayer physics game. Um, but alpha is also when you should be really clamping down on your scope. Host another vote, especially if you're like, hey, we're getting a little out of control here. I know we all like fishing mini games, but I think trying to get it in this game right now is just not gonna work. We need to veto this. We need to push this off. This ain't happening anymore. Um, and then data, et cetera, et cetera. Define this however works for y'all. That's really the important thing at the end of the day.
Final example from Dice Tower as a roguelike here because I actually read the same book, I've got the same books from here, and I had to reconcile them against my game structure. It doesn't, it's a little bit different from if you're doing a more narrative focused game like what you're working on and what Young Dog and other games that the person who wrote that book has worked on. So the way I wound up defining alpha is all of the game's building blocks are created. Everything that is going to be used to make the game's content is there, which is a little bit different from a feature complete or a sequence complete because you don't necessarily have all of the possible paths forward there in a roguelike. You don't have all of that content to see how it all plays out, but you have all of the systems that are going to actually mesh together and combine together, which then leads into beta. That's when you're actually building out the content and putting all of the bricks together and seeing how they play together.
Yeah, how many more jokers could be added to Balatro?
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions or comments? I'll add one more thing here, and I think this is particularly important if you're in a team. Is that the reviews isn't only trying to decide the fate of your darling, is it going to live to see another day? But it's consensus building. These are very, very good check-in opportunities to have with your team. You might be really surprised about how someone else is feeling. When you're in the weeds and you're just working, you're like, okay, all right, I need to come over. Let's talk about it. And you're like, I love this thing, and your teammate's just like, it's my least favorite thing that we made this entire couple months. Like you might be really surprised about how things are going. As well as creating the available documentation for pre-production. I don't think that's something that should be skipped, especially if you're working in a team, because just like if there's value misalignment in a company and it's company shattering, and now you can't even you're disgusted to look at your fellow studio founder. Something similar can happen with a game project. Sorry. It was a beautiful little acting moment. I'm sorry. Something similar can happen for a game project, and I think that's why even for games, you should be value aligned as best as you can. So getting that documentation together and those conversations is going to be really, really useful. Because you don't want to hear from someone's like, okay, all right, yeah, so we're making a 3D platformer, and no, we're not. Focus. It's like, oh, okay, we have very different visions on where this project is going, and that's fine. And we kind of need to figure this out now. So it's not just deciding the fate of the project, but I think it's really good to just having purposeful check-ins, more often than this. But if this is all you have, it's so much better than nothing. census building.
Weekly review meetings.
Yeah. So that was a lot of random little things. I'm again with Amalor. We're hopefully going to move on beyond sports arena physics. And we have a lot of oh god. My partner likes to make fun of me and say that I'm not fully a native English speaker because I'll come up with idioms like I was about to say pipes in the fire and I don't know why. But that's what my brain started to come up with. It's a magical little organ I have. Anyway,
Irons in the fire.
that's iron.
Iron on the fire and fingers in every pie.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was thinking about pie, I was thinking about iron, and I was thinking about fire.
Question. What are some of your favorite tools that you've used to do production?
Miro. I like. I'm a very visual oriented person. I'm someone who, I know there's some other people that really like Notion because they're more like text focused. But here I can go back to it real fast.
Visual and text difference.
Yeah, no, this presentation was made in Miro actually. But
Wait, what? Brain works in Miro, so
oh no, I put
in my presentation last month.
but yeah, I think so in terms of like so if anything in real life, all I would need is a giant white wall and a bunch of sticky notes. I like I actually like the collaborative aspect of Miro. I like that I like how I can have like my little worlds so I can like link to a particular point of a board and be like, okay, so this is our brainstorming like area or whatever. I make so many templates for everything. So it's really small on the screen right now. Um, but some of the templates so we're talking about like how do you decide your chunks. I made what's called layers of game. Um, and then I just define the different things. This says player verbs, special sequences, mission slash levels, environment, systems and mechanics, juice slash presentation, and content. And the idea is that we would all like sit in a meeting together and just start plonking stickies on the dartboard.
Wait, so did you make it in Miro and then you took pictures of it and put it in slides, or it's literally Miro?
Oh no. If I wanted to keep things easy rolling for the IGA system, so I exported it out as PDF.
Oh, okay, like
Yeah.
frame, like
Yeah.
okay.
There's actually Miro now has a slides feature. So within a board, which I'm so sorry if anyone here doesn't know anything about Miro. I'm starting to get technical weeds about it. But no, unironically, it's one of my most important production tools, aside from our task tracking software.
Can you give like a 1 or 2 sentence TLDR on what it's for those who don't use
Collaborative whiteboard, honestly, on steroids, because it has like a lot of really random features that you wouldn't expect it to have. Like it has like a feature where you can honestly like record a talk and like the screen will track where you are on your board, so you can give like a walkthrough of what this board is and how to use it or something, and then it's a permanent video attached to the board that someone can watch at any time.
MIRO.
Yes, MIRO.
Are there some particular steps or like things that you do when producing a game that Miro is better suited for, whereas you would maybe look towards other tools for other areas? Like where does it excel and where do you find it kind of great?
Yeah. So task tracking. I didn't get into the numbers game stuff today at all. You kind of see it here, cross multiplication. I have like a thing where you take story points and you can cross multiply to start working backwards and like get an estimate on how long a game project will take. Very crappy little small explanation here. I can give like detailed information. Honestly, I could give a whole other talk on like specific numbers, tools like that. Anyway, you asked about other tools. So yes, task management, because whatever like software solution you're using for that, it's gonna track like your burn rate, like velocity, agile terms. Like Miro doesn't do any of that. It is most powerful when it is sticky notes on a whiteboard. It has some extra stuff that's fun. Like there's some voting tools. Um, there's like well, you can make presentations in it. But beyond that, I think you you know don't unless like you're that laid back where it's like you would have only used a basic Trello board anyway. Like if you're just like, oh, I was only going to have like, okay, the sticky note to do. I'm working on it. It's done. I'm just gonna delete it because I don't even care about tracking that stuff. Like if you're that level, Miro's fine. But I do recommend using something that has like a little bit more information tracking because I think it's also useful for future you. You now have data points, right? And that's what's supposed to be useful about the whole story points thing. Is you have historical data that you can look back on and see how things went. Miro's not going to give that to you, especially if you're just like, okay, you finish this task, delete the sticky. It doesn't have history of your sticky anymore. That's gone. So it's not good for tracking data like that. Yeah. So I think that's yeah. Oh, and then beyond like Google Docs for more technical like text documents. Even Miro now has like you can have docs inside of your Miro board, which I do use to some extent, but that's just because I like it when everything's just on the same screen together. I'm like, it's fun, and I can have a cute little image, like this little cat. I'm like, yeah, let's go. It will boost my mood while I'm crying in pain and agony as my team starts focusing on a new feature, and I'm like, guys, wait, stop, please. Yes, I do. And if you're looking for something that is a little bit cheaper, there's also Excalidraw. It's like the open source alternative. That's something that we might end up moving to. Yeah, so I like a whiteboard.
How do you spell Excalibur? What is that?
Oh,
EXC.
I'm neurospicy. I
EXCALIDRAW?
Yeah, it's like
You use it in a sentence. Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's they stole my given
There's
Going
one
to
their usage.
but I do use their
My goodness.
They're all roughly the same place.
Oh, another good thing that I should probably mention. Do people here know about Obsidian?
Yeah.
This is more for personal tracking than like project level tracking. But I really, really love Obsidian as a tool. Well, it could even be used as like, a source of like how you start building your game documentation, like your game wiki or whatever. If you're more interested in making a wiki than more traditional game design documents, Obsidian's really good at like doing the spider web connection like craziness that you can see on some of their graphs that they have online of like what other people are doing.
I have a question about your co-op. It's been, I'm trying to remember when you did the last talk. It's probably a couple of years ago now, right? Like,
It's been several months since I talked.
I think it was 2023.
yeah. How's it going? Like, how's like, I think I remember asking way back then, like, how does the design work? Like how has that been the last like year or two of like, does it feel like design by committee, or does it feel like people have their roles and they're collaborating?
Oh boy.
Do we need to turn the camera off?
No, it's just kind of funny how different they work.
Which
Yeah.
clients came from.
Yeah, where am I gonna stand for that?
Yeah.
Oh, I still stand in this. Oh, everyone's only seen my head this entire time. Oh, the transmath curse. Anyway, um, yes. So the reason why I made a face is because like, oh, that's really funny. So there's no money. There's no money. That's terrifying. Holy crap. Wow, that's awful. So we really have started pivoting towards making smaller games. So small that actually, it's almost kind of like we're doing Sock Pop a little bit by accident right now. If you're not familiar, Sock Pop is another indie game developer collection, I'm going to call them. Or what I like to call themselves, I think, the indie game boy band. Um, they just sort of make games alongside each other. That's kind of what we started doing, actually. All of us have our main project that we're working on. We help each other with each other's projects. But otherwise, we're making games that are so small in scope that it's doable by a solo developer for most of the development time. That does make my job a little harder at doing production stuff because now it's like, oh boy, I gotta work organize 3 games at the same time instead of just one big game. So it's been an adjustment period for me. We're not sure if this is going to be the strategy we're using long term. But right now we're looking at trying to release something between Halloween and sometime like in the holidays. And then our next release is going to be in February next year. So we're really going hard on the small, like really tiny projects. So in a way, it's like I think people have gotten even more creative freedom because of it. Because they have something that is their own. They're spearheading their own project. They kind of are the lead and have the final say so on things. Um, it just got too untenable for the other project. It's like, ooh, hopefully we can release something faster and start building up some money that we can't, because we can't fully fund ourselves through contract work alone right now. We have to supplement it via other means. The other thing is we actually released a card game this past year that we did a successful Kickstarter for. And yeah, so now it's just like hopefully gonna have another game release by the end of this year, but we'll see about that. Thanks, streamers.
And thank you again, everybody, for showing up. So, before everybody starts hustling into some discussions with other people in the room, we've got some planning to do for how many people are going to be going to the bar afterwards. I'm also going to, I think at this point, say goodnight to our stream.
Can I
Yeah.
pitch one more thing? So next month there is a extra life event going on. I'll just pull up the things so I can read it. Steve is running an extra life thing. I just scroll up. It's going to be in Rosemount at the True Sports Center. Anyway, there is a thing on the general chat. I'll post it again. Last year it was actually pretty good fun. I brought a bunch of like old hardware. I had some 40-year-old video game stuff to bring in. I have lots of people there. Troy also talked about if you want to bring in a demo games, that would be really cool with them. So it's just an opportunity if people have a game that they're making, they show with people. Yeah. So yeah, I'll repost the thing in the general channel and people should think of it.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh. Anything else for the good of the cause before we say goodnight to our people online? Bye-bye. You can wave goodbye. Bye-bye.